everybody. Welcome to So Many Sequels, your book club for movies. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
Welcome to, unfortunately, the end of Paddington month. But
It's over.
welcome to our new Paddington episode. It's been a month full of whimsy and charm and marmalade.
Yeah, marmalade.
Lightness.
Exactly. A lot of marmalade.
Hard stares.
Oh, hard stairs. A lot of people need them. A lot of people should do them. It's all
They're
I'm
for
gonna say.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think a great national healing could occur if more of us adopted a hard stare at appropriate times.
Yes, I agree.
Maybe.
You see a man taking a picture of a woman at a gym, hard stare.
Yeah. You get into a fight with your friend on a podcast, hard stare.
Hard stare.
You see a kid mouthing off to his mom in the grocery store, hard
You've
stare.
forgotten. It's for when people
You've
forget their
forgotten your
manners.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I
Or
think
what's important.
Or what's important, which are manners. So
Yeah.
I think the world could learn from Paddington, which is why we're talking about him this month. And we'll be talking about Paddington in Peru here in a little bit. If you have enjoyed the show so far, subscribe on YouTube or Spotify is where we have the videos. If you want audio, you can go to anywhere podcasts are downloaded. They're not really sold. Ours are not anyway.
No.
But on YouTube, you can help us reach our next subscriber goal of 343, and then we will be changing it after that to an as yet undisclosed number that is very important that we reach for undisclosed reasons.
We're currently at 328, so we are not that far from
true.
our next goal.
Yeah. You can help us get there. So go to YouTube, hit subscribe, sign in to subscribe. All right, let's jump into the movie. Paddington in Peru. This time, Paddington is going to travel to Peru to visit his beloved Aunt Lucy, who now resides at the home for retired bears. With the Brown family in tow, a thrilling adventure ensues when a mystery plunges them into an unexpected journey through the Amazon rainforest and up to the mountain peaks of Peru. David, what has been the box office opening so far of Paddington? What do we know about it, Paddington in Peru?
Well, we're in week 2 currently for Paddington in Peru here in the U.S. It opened here in the United States December 14th, Valentine's Day, 2025, in the number 2 spot with 12.7 million, as you would imagine. I think we talked about this a little bit during this week's news update, but it opened just behind Captain America: Brave New World, which is in the number 1 spot. Number 3 was Hard Eyes. Number 4, Dogman, and number 5 was a movie called Ne Zha 2. Chinese animated film. You know, that 12.7 million, that's pretty much on par with the Paddington franchise. The first movie here in the U.S. brought in 18.9 in its opening weekend. The second movie brought in about 11. So, generally speaking, these aren't like massive opening weekends for the Paddington franchise, but, you know, solid opens for movies that are, you know, in a budget range between 50 and 70 million. It's not that bad. In the U.S. so far, it's made up to 25.2 million. It'll probably continue on a little bit. The first Paddington movie made about 76 million in the U.S. The second made about 40, and worldwide, it's because it opened in Europe, Australia, Russia, a few other places like that. It opened up in November of last year, and so it's currently up to 125 million. It still has a few international openings to come, so we'll kind of see where it finishes in the long term. But currently sitting at about 150 million worldwide. The first Paddington made about 250, the second about 241. So maybe it has a chance of reaching, you know, that 200 million range before it's all said and done. It did finish, in terms of worldwide numbers, number 40 on last year's, 2024 list. So, yeah, I mean, overall, it's been not the biggest opening of any movie we've ever recorded, but I think pretty on par with what Paddington franchise has done thus far.
So I had big expectations this time, y'all. This was, I'm pretty certain, I don't think I saw the last one in theaters. I think this was my first Paddington on the big screen. Same for you guys, I know, but I had high expectations for that. And because, the other two were so good. Why would that's why I was like, I'm just gonna lean in and have faith that they will knock it out of the park a third time. Those first two movies are all about Paddington in Britain, but this one was going to be about Paddington back in Peru with the Browns in Peru. I thought changing up the setting would help a lot with that, and I think it did. Garrett, what was your expectation for this one? We saw it together. Rare occasion of getting to see it together.
Yes, it was an enjoyable watch, and I was super excited because the first two, similar to you, they exceeded my expectations as first-time watches for this show. both of them were just truly amazing movies. And so I didn't think that they would want to sully that. And there's high expectations coming after what is considered one of the best movies ever, made, based on Rotten Tomatoes scores, Letterboxd reviews. I mean, it's universally loved. And so the expectations for me was that they were once again going to whisk me away on a fun, enjoyable movie, and that's what happened, and I was not let down.
Ooh, all right, David, what were your expectations?
My expectations were... No, they were slightly tempered. I was excited, but I thought, this is a 7-year gap between this and Paddington 2. It's been about 10 years since the first one. I had learned that the director of the first two was not returning for this one, so I was interested to see if they could maintain the momentum of those first two. But I was excited. I picked up a Paddington in Peru poster here, because
Nice.
I was excited.
That is exciting.
And I like this. It just says "Lost in the Jungle." That's the tagline there. And you have a lot of great moments. This is a pretty decent poster for a poster that just has a bunch of people thrown on it. Anyway, so I was excited, but I was ready. And we'll talk about some of the other changes that came along the way. But so we'll get into that. But generally speaking, I was nervous, but I was I thought that based on the trailer, I thought they were going to pull it down.
So this movie really kind of kicks off with Paddington finalizing his status as a British citizen, which is, we talked in that first one about how I think that Letterboxd review pointed out that the movie was just kind of Paddington versus British bureaucrisy, which is fun in its own right. But we get this setup of he gets his passport, so he this is how he gets his chance to go to Peru. What did you guys think about this story? Were you excited to go back to Peru?
Cards on the table. I did not really watch. We talked about it. We hadn't seen these movies before this particular journey for the podcast, and I saw at the end of last year a third Paddington movie called Paddington in Peru. And at the time, I went, it's a weird place to have that movie set. Maybe, Peru's wonderful, but I thought, what a unique place to pick. I had no idea Paddington as a character is from Peru. so I was when we watched the first movie and it's set in they find these bears in the jungle of Peru. I was like, oh, he's from here. Okay. That's not so weird. But I was kind of excited because Aunt Lucy had come back. We'd had these two films in London, so it kind of felt nice to shake it up and do something a little bit different. And it made sense from a story perspective for him to go back to where he was, born, revisit his homeland, if you will. So I was kind of excited about the chance to go back and revisit the world of Paddington.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Aunt Lucy is Aunt Lucy is Paddington's guiding light, his moral philosophy. Everything comes from Aunt Lucy.
Yes, she's his mama's said life's like a box of chocolates figure,
Yeah.
I really liked the way that this movie opened up, and you got to see Paddington's perspective of what happened in the second movie. The way that they tied those two, together, I thought was really cool. You opened Paddington 2 with Pastuzo and Aunt Lucy on a bridge eating the sandwiches, seeing Paddington come down and them saving him. And in this one, you see how that started from Paddington's perspective.
Yes.
And the way that they opened that up, listen, the animation that they have for this bear and the eyes that they have, there was some moments in this where they zoomed in on his eyes and they were moving, they were emotional, and I swear I had a moment of that was a big middle finger to Disney, and I loved it. Look what we can do.
That too.
Look what we can do. We can create
Competition is
emotion in the eyes, Disney.
Yeah.
You're dead zombie animals.
Yeah.
Bring it.
And it's because they're not necessarily going for photorealism. They do have really it is detailed, but it's not. They're not going for trying to make it look like real, like a lifelike bear. They've really nailed
because
it. Because
if a lifelike bear talked, it'd be horrifying.
And I did think, and I agree with you, Garrett. When it opened up and we saw Paddington before he had fallen in the river, I was like, I actually said kind of to myself quietly, interesting, just because. For them to kind of detail Paddington's origin sort of in reverse order over the course of the movies, where you go back a little bit further each time to how he eventually ended up on this journey. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
And I liked the little flower on his head, foreshadowing his hat.
Yes, that was very cute. The little baby Paddington was quite adorable. I do have questions about his age because he doesn't seem to age, but that's not really a big thing. It's just a question.
He's 40-year-old Ben Whishaw.
It's true because I would not accept the premise of an adult Paddington. He must always be this.
I know, he can never be as big as Uncle Pastuzu and Aunt Lucy.
Because, yeah, you're right. I mean, in this movie, we actually, like, Paddington narrates us through how much the Brown family has grown and changed. But he is not. He is still, like, the same marmalade-loving, accident-causing little
still easily
peacoat-wearing
confused.
Dude. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's very interesting. What do you think about the... what I like about these movies is how we see the Brown family grow over time. Same thing happened in the second one, you know. I don't remember, but what's his name wanted to go by like J-Dog. Jonathan wanted to go by J-Dog.
J-Dog, and he was more into he wanted to look cool.
And now in this one, he's the teenager who's shut in his room all day, but he's also extremely inventive and is making all these gadgets with the sole purpose of moving as little as possible. I like seeing the family grow and change.
Quite literally grow and change. We do have a recasting in this. Mrs. Brown, so be aware of that going into it. But I like that they use the family as a way of, there's two stories going on here. And one of them is really kind of not as appreciated, I think, but it is one that hit really hard. You have Paddington and learning about his origins and his family and where he came from, and that's a beautiful story. But you also have a family that is growing older, and they're getting separate and more isolated from each other. And really the only person that's feeling that is Mrs. Brown at that moment. And so not only are you following Paddington on this hunt of family and treasure and who knows what, you're also seeing this really sad element going on here as Mrs. Brown feels like she's losing literally all her kids, including Paddington, and that comes to play at the end. But that element is really important too, and I think it's usually not talked about, some of the back end stories, but that was a really strong B plot.
Yeah, the ability to use the Browns to kind of show how people enter different seasons of their life, especially with kids, it happens so quickly. But, I think the second one, Mr. Brown was going through a bit of a midlife crisis in some regards, and in this one, he's got a new boss who's challenging him to kind of break out of
his comfort zone.
That he's kind of firmly established over time.
Risk management, and he's really leaned into it.
And I have to say that I guess you could lob this as a criticism, but I find that for me the most interesting relationship of all the characters is Mr. Brown and Paddington. The kids seem more distant in this one, and maybe that's just the nature of the story, just doesn't avail them as much to do. Mrs. Brown does have a very recognizable arc of kind of listful and wishing that she could have like those special moments with her family back. But I don't know. There's something about Mr. Brown and Paddington's relationship of Mr. Brown always looking at Paddington like, Paddington, and being stunned by what this little bear gets into. I love that a lot. So I don't know. Yeah, I have grown attached to this Brown family and their relationship with Paddington the bear.
They're quite good. They're quite good. So one of the delightful aspects of Paddington 2 was Hugh Grant as Phoenix Buchanan, the lead villain. This time, I don't want to, get into too much spoiler territory, but Antonio Banderas is portrayed as this movie's villain. He's Antonio Banderas, and I personally think he filled those shoes very nicely. He gave us a different kind of villain, this riverboat captain sort of vibe, leading them through the Amazon. What do you guys think of Mr. Banderas?
I enjoyed that he got to showcase his silliness in a way that wasn't an animated cat, because
Puss in Boots.
He really has the charm and charisma to just lean into a character and bring that animation to life on screen, because he is just so charming. And man, him he played a bunch of different characters in this one too, similar to Hugh Grant, and it wasn't as extended periods or anything like that, but like seeing him get a chance to be funny and slapsticky and way over the top, it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, and what I really appreciated was that they didn't just rest on doing the same thing again. He's a very conflicted villain. There's a part of him that really doesn't want to do the stuff that he's doing, and he kind of wishes he could stop himself from giving into his desires, which made for a very, which allowed the story to develop slower, I think, but in a good way, not slower in a bad way, but like, it made sense that things, they didn't just rush right into like a big mustache twirl or something like that. He's fighting himself, and it's very, so it made for a much more interesting go, especially when you compare it to the other sort of bad guys in the Paddington series.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Nicole Kidman was very convicted. She was like, I'm doing this. There was no hesitation from her.
Well, and that's what's nice about these movies, now getting to see 3 of them and seeing how 3 A-list actors handle the villain roles. It really feels like Paddington is set up to let an actor just be as a cartoonish as a villain as they want to be, which you can see it work really well with Hugh Grant and Antonio Banderas to a degree. And then you can see, like, Nicole Kidman, to me, was less, I don't know, she could have been leaned in more, I think.
And it's not necessarily, they aren't necessarily roles that those 3 get to play very often.
Exactly, yeah. Although, Hugh Grant has taken a bit of a villain turn lately that I enjoy anytime I get to see now.
It's true.
Yeah, he's
true. I loved him in D&D.
Yeah. The other A-list actor that's in this one is Olivia Colman, who was... give her an Oscar nomination. Give her some kind of nomination. I don't care. But Hugh Grant got BAFTAs. Why shouldn't she? She was so charming and wonderful and captivating on the screen, and the way that she drew you in and
she
really kind of hammed it up and got to be Olivia Colman. She was also a show stealer.
She gets a musical moment.
She does.
Yes.
And she does a little Sound of Music kind of homage at one point too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
it was wonderful.
And she's so funny. Like I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it's a very she communicates so much with her eyes in this movie, and like her grin is very, I don't know, it's very infectious.
She's very expressive. She's playing this nun essentially, who it's a home for the retired bears. So it is a retirement home for bears run by nuns. So all of her acting is in her face. Because she's fully nunned up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If that is the term, I don't know. Sorry to the nuns who listen.
Yeah.
But her face is very expressive.
You use nun like it's a Smurf term, like
very Smurfed up, yeah.
Like this is nunned up,
Right, exactly. Well,
Oh my God.
I don't want to get into spoiler territory, so I won't. But she's great. Yeah, she's great because she's equal parts like, ooh, I trust her, but then other times like, ooh, is she hiding something? I don't know. It's interesting. She's great. I'm glad.
She's sus, as the kids might say.
Sus.
She's sus.
Yeah. Paddington wouldn't say that.
No, he would not.
But other kids.
Hey, I want to ask a question. Who do we think the audience is for Paddington movies? Because
British children.
an interesting, okay, you say that.
I don't
yes,
know.
but in our theater, the only time that I ever heard a kid laugh was when Antonio Banderas got hit in the stomach with a risk manual, and I'm 80% sure that kid thought he got hit lower than the belt, and that's why he was laughing so hard. But I didn't really hear anybody laughing outside of the adults. So I'm curious if this movie is for kids, or if this is more like a genuine family movie where like parents feel comfortable bringing their kids, and kids are relatively enjoying it, but it's more for the parents to have that moment. David, you got a kid. You're the only one. What do you feel? How do you feel about that?
I feel like it is mostly for families. I do think that clearly it does have more appeal internationally. The UK seems to love it, and Australia loves it. I think it is more of a movie for families, and families with kids that are like maybe 5 and older, because it's a little bit, it's kind of, and here's the thing, and here's why I think parents love it, is because it's not obnoxious in any way. Like, it is
There
not
are no minions.
No, it's not a minion situation. It's not any of,
Kevin, Bob.
And even if you compare it to, say, like classical Disney movies, right, which weren't always obnoxious, but they were like musical numbers and songs, and it was very, maybe there was a certain element of it that was like
Always
not
with the
necessarily,
music.
yeah. So Paddington doesn't have that. It's a much more slower paced, much more wholesome, but it's humorous and it's fun. But I think if kids probably age range of like 5 to 10, they're more of like the audience there versus like a 3 or 4-year-old who I think is going to lose attention pretty quickly. But yeah, it's not just noise, and it's not just dumb. It's not just over the top. There's a lot of physical comedy, but it's not like people just getting hurt.
Yeah. Right. It is not just crotch shots all over the place. Like, I think you're probably right. I think they did probably think it was a crotch shot.
Yeah.
Because
the way that kid laughed, he laughed.
Are you sure that kid wasn't Andrew?
Hard.
Get to one second. There were families in my viewing, and there was a little girl at one point. I can't remember what it was she was responding to, but there was an interaction between Antonio Banderas and somebody, and this little girl just went, "That's not nice," really loud. And I was like, "You're right. You're right."
She's learning the lessons that Paddington is trying to teach her, so good for her.
So to kind of steer this towards an end here, I wanted to ask: we've seen 3 of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to know what our reviews are yet to know that this is a well-liked one too. We like this one. They're all well-loved. What is it that makes these movies work so well? Even knowing, like we just talked about, that it's not the typical children's movie that's just loud and colorful, blah blah blah. Why are they all so beloved?
That's a good question. I think it's, you don't see a lot of continued kindness even for an hour and a half anymore. And there's antagonists in this movie, but even they're presented as cartoons and kind of fun. And there's not, other than the second one where Paddington almost drowned, there's not
mild peril.
A lot of like dread and terror. And I think these work because you leave feeling good. And it's not like I went through a journey to feel good. I didn't have to get so high. I didn't have to get brought down low. I started here and just inclined. Like, it just made me feel good because it's nice. And I think we don't see that enough. And I think that whenever it's presented this way, it hits us in a way that's like, man, I wish people in the world were like that,
Yeah.
I agree.
And I think it's wholesome, but it's not boring. Like, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's just, I think a lot of it too is just Paddington as a character is just so likable, and he could easily be annoying. He could easily be just like an annoying, naive character that everybody's like, oh my gosh, I wish Paddington would just get it, because like but like he's not. There's something just lovable and sweet about him, even down to his kind of predictable nature of wanting a marmalade sandwich.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what it is that works so well, but it just I think Dan Povenmire is an animator, and he worked on like the Phineas and Ferb show, and he said that compared to Nickelodeon, Disney doesn't want, generally for their animated shows, they didn't want characters whose whole thing is that they hate something. So like they tried to write their characters to be like antagonistic, but they're not just being mean to each other. And like for the most part, even the villains aren't really just being mean to other characters. There's, they might have a nefarious goal, or they might be doing something that's not nice, but it's not like they're just calling each other stupid. I don't know. Maybe that's just something that appeals to people. It's like it's just easy to watch.
Yeah, could be. I lean toward the core message being this idea of kindness resonating with people. And I think it being a central point, thread throughout. In the first Paddington, so much of it is about belonging and him trying to fit in and belong in a place that he normally wouldn't. Paddington 2 is kind of about how he's able to take kindness to his community. He's out in the streets of London more. He literally turns hardened criminals into friends. And then this one's about finding home and family and who you are and where you come from. And I think that all comes together with his whole spiel from Aunt Lucy about if we're kind and polite, the world will be right.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I
Yeah.
think it's it.
Or it could
and for
be
be
this one specifically.
a lack of minions. I don't know.
For this one specifically, the message that I took home was, again, your home and your family, it can all you can be a part of so many different things, and that is a good thing. And that knowing who you are at your roots, you can honor that. You can start out on your own and make your own life. There are so many different cultures and pieces that we can be a part of and appreciate, and that is a good thing. And I think that was also being conveyed here.
Yeah. My final question before we give our review and rating is: do you have a pitch for another Paddington story? If they make another movie, and I'm trying not to think of it as like Paddington 4, and more so like if they just tell another Paddington story, what would you want it to be? And I will go first because I think Paddington and the Brown family should come to America. And I think Paddington should. Because I think Paddington, hear me out. Paddington in New York City will be rough.
Yeah, right.
But I think Paddington would also be able to learn another message about community and teach his own lessons from home about community, because America's just very different. We're not that same kind of polite and kind.
No.
But we do have strong community ties. And I think Paddington in America would be fascinating.
Paddington goes west, I have like 2 or 3 ideas. But so Garrett, you go
get
first.
one.
No,
you
I got
one.
Okay, well
you get one.
One of them is just the
You
title.
get one.
One of them is just the
brave.
title.
David, you get one, and the rest are on social media.
Okay, well I get here's one that's just the title. Paddington Down Under. That's all I'm gonna say. Paddington Goes to Australia. The other one the real one that I had, Garrett, you go. I forgot.
Jesus, Lord
I
have
forgot
mercy.
what you got me all worked up, and then I forgot what it was.
Mine is unfortunately a sad one in that
That's
someone's
okay.
gonna die,
Okay.
and it's gonna be Aunt Lucy, and Paddington's gonna go through hard times because he hasn't been met with that yet, and the community is gonna have to be there for him, and he's going to have to learn how to accept help in a way that he hasn't.
I like that.
So, sorry, Aunt Lucy, but it is unfortunately the next step and a hard thing that they have not addressed yet in the Paddington franchise.
And then my last idea, little joke idea here. Planet of the Bears. All right, it's like Planet of the Apes, but with Paddington as Caesar, and it's just the bears take over. We lose all people. Bears have taken over the world. Planet of the Bears.
Planet of the Bears. Okay. I like it. Paddington and Caesar. Yeah. why
Paddington,
not?
like
Gummy-
Caesar, does sit up
the
there in
gummy
his little
bears.
window.
That's a free idea for the Paddington folks.
Because that is what I started
Anyways.
thinking about when he's standing there with all these other bears at one point. I was like, oh man.
So I'm gonna say Paddington 2. We talked about that was a 5-star movie all around for all of us, and my expectations were super high for this. They were honestly met. I don't know that it achieved 5-star realm, and maybe I'm gonna say that only because Paddington 2 made me cry and Paddington in Peru didn't, but that just doesn't mean much. So for some reason I'm feeling like I'm sitting at a 4.5 right now. Could be recency bias. I'm trying to talk myself out of it like that's a bad review.
Could be.
What are you guys feeling?
I think
It's a tough one.
I can't. It is because I can't necessarily figure out where it falls with the other two. I mean, obviously it's not as good as Paddington 2, but I can't decide if I think it's better than Paddington or not, because I gave it a 4, and I've been leaning towards a 4 for this one. But this conversation, I mean, this movie was really enjoyable.
It was.
And it had some good messages, so I think I might give it a 4.5 too.
I mean, we put 3 guys in our 30s with watching it with no children. We had a great time.
I know, yeah.
So I think in the end it is a really solid film. It's very fun, mild peril, as it says on the poster. I went to see this in the theater. There were kids that seemed to be enjoying themselves, so I really appreciated that this one was a bit more of a mystery, a bit of an adventure, in a far-off land and all that. The jungles of Peru, so I thought it was kind of a fun change of pace compared to the first two. Maybe at this point not my favorite of the three, but still a great film. So I'm gonna give it like a 4 out of 5. I think.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Excellent. I think that's pretty good scores all around, quite frankly. So,
Yes.
Paddington has been a successful month. I'm gonna be sad to see it go, honestly, because no matter where we go from here, it probably won't be this positive. Whether in terms of our review or the message of the movie, you just never know.
Yeah.
But we'll wrap it up here with Letterboxd Game. I've got some of the most popular reviews so far of Paddington and Peru pulled up, so that we can take some guesses at what we think the score is so far after a little more than a week in theaters. Well, actually, it's been out for a long time in the UK. You said so.
It's
probably
been out
collected
since
quite
November.
a few.
Yeah.
4 stars. Paddington says a lot's changed with the Brown family. Well, yeah, the mom has a new face. 3.5. This is how we get the G in Olivia Colman's EGOT.
Get the Grammy for Paddington in Peru.
4 stars. Paddington and his wonderful new blue passport.
Yes.
4 stars. Lord, please take any sadness or suffering Paddington endures and give it to me instead.
You just wait till Paddington 4.
And then this is the most popular review, and it has no stars because it is actually from Paddington himself.
Oh yes, Paddington joined
Paddington's on
Letterboxd.
Letterboxd.
Paddington has a
should've brought this
Letterboxd
up.
account, and he said, "It was lovely bringing the Brown family to see my home in Peru and making new friends along the way."
Beautiful.
I hope this
Beautiful
starts
words
a
from
real
Paddington.
trend of characters having their own Letterboxd accounts.
I hope so too. It is, just looking at his profile real quick. Oh my gosh, it is filled out. Paddington's favorite films his 4 favorites are Mary Poppins, It's a
Yeah, of
Wonderful
course.
Life,
Right.
Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times, and My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh yes. Okay.
Wow.
And his
works.
most recently watched film that he is leaving reviews on films is he
Wonderful.
watched this weekend The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And he said
I've seen that.
he said Walter went on such thrilling adventures, though I think he'd have been much happier with a marmalade sandwich in his satchel. Adventures are always better with a snack.
Go give Paddington a follow on Letterboxd.
Please do.
'Cause I'm about to.
He is leaving reviews. Okay, what
about
do we
to.
think? What do we think?
Well, Josh,
Josh,
you
I
haven't
think you're
scored
first,
yet.
yeah.
So
Is it me?
you gotta go. I mean,
I
unless
was
you want to go
thrown.
last.
I didn't expect him to have built out the profile. I figured they had him review his own movie and then they logged out forever.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna be real mean and do 4.0.
Yeah, that's a good place to go.
Okay, now it's you, Garrett.
I don't think it's gonna be as high as some of them. So I don't think it's gonna be higher than a 4. But I'll go with the 3.8.
Oh, dang. I'll say it's a 3.7.
Okay, we got 3.7, 3.8, 4.0. Let's see. Now, last week we had a direct hit. Are we going to do it this time? No. No direct hit this time. We are off. I'm more so, but we're all off quite a bit, I think. This is a 3.5 movie on Letterboxd right
Fascinating.
now, which is going to make David the closest one at 3.7. But
Fascinating.
right now it's kind of low for Paddington. Not that there's anything
Yeah.
wrong with
I'm a little
3.5,
surprised.
But I am too. I think it's better than that, but
In Peru.
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe people are just wrong, and that's okay. And those people
Well,
could
you
be
know,
us.
I don't know. You
We
know, a
could
lot
be
of
the
people
wrong
could
ones.
just be rating it 3.5, and that's so if that's the highest. What does they have the graph there? What is the highest on the little arc there? What's gotten the most ratings?
The 3.5 and the 4 are almost tied. They're like separated by a few dozen.
Okay, interesting.
That's it for this episode. We're going to be back in March for our Oscars month, where we're going to be talking about some of the nominees over the 90 some odd years of the Oscars. Best Picture, Best Animated, Best Foreign. We're going to go for some of the Best Picture categories. So keep an eye out on our socials for that. So Many Sequels Pod on Instagram and Threads is where we are most active, is those two. And then we're also on Facebook and TikTok. Go to our web... I love to laugh at that.
No, I'm sorry. I made myself. I'll tell you
Made
later.
yourself laugh. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Go to our website, SoManySequels.com. We've got all those links, and we've got some blogs up there that we're writing and posting about, but you can find everything about the show there, SoManySequels.com. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.